Hi, I'm Dr. Renee Hackney. Welcome to our last part in our series on managing tantrums. In part 1, we talked about a few basic things to know, like age guidelines. In part 2, we talked about long-term prevention, which was teaching emotion language and teaching kids ways to calm down. In part 3, we talked about the short-term prevention, which might be looking at triggers and cues. In part 4, we talked about having a plan, and so the idea was either be a Camp A, which is that ignore during, neutral after, or be a Camp B, which is giving empathy and help, but that you want to do that in a consistent way. Over the years, when we talk to parents about tantrums, I often get parents who say, okay, wait a minute, I'm Camp C. Camp C would be that the parents have created some other way to respond to the tantrums, and what I tend to say is, okay, once they've described it to me, that way sounds fine. You really want to be consistent and do that Camp C every time. That consistency being the key piece. So I'll give you an example of a Camp C. Just a few weeks ago, a parent said, oh, we made a calm down spot in our house, and that calm down spot is a pop-up tent in her bedroom, and there's a sleeping bag in there. She loves being in there. And so when our child starts to tantrum, we say, oh, let's go to the calm down spot. It's not a discipline spot, but it's a place for them to go calm down. And they take her there and they say, when you're calm, you are welcome to join us. And child goes in, calms down, comes back, rejoins, and they kind of pick up and move forward from. Now, granted, not many kids are that agreeable to go to a calm down spot in the moments where they're having tantrums, but if that's working, they're not really being Camp A, entirely ignoring during, neutral after. They are ignoring, but they're giving empathy on the way. They're saying, I know you're frustrated, I know you're angry, reminding her of how to calm down. And so there's a little piece of that Camp B in there. Putting it together, that's like a Camp C, and that's completely fine as long as you're consistent. So I've said consistent a whole lot of times in this series, and what I want to do is just stop and talk about when you are inconsistent in response. So there's this thing called intermittent reinforcement, and the idea is that if you every once in a while reinforce a behavior, you more strongly reinforce it than if you reinforced it every time. So that intermittent reinforcement tends to be more reinforcing than consistent reinforcement. Reinforce something every once in a while, you almost entrench its behavior. And so I'm gonna start by giving you an example, and I apologize for this, about lab rats. When I was in grad school and I learned about intermittent reinforcement, I got the rat example. If you Google intermittent reinforcement, several of the top things that come up are about animal studies, and they're talking, and I know children are nowhere near that simple, they're much more complex, and there's a lot of other things going on, but there is a little piece of intermittency often at play when you are accidentally reinforcing a behavior like tantrums. So I'm going to give you this example. Let's say I'm a researcher and I work with lab rats, and lab rat A gets what's called consistent reinforcement. Every time they push a lever, they get a pellet to eat. Press, pellet, press, pellet. Okay, this is kind of boring. Press, pellet. They're only going to press it when they're hungry. It's a tool. It's predictable. They know how to use that. Lab rat B, there's intermittent reinforcement. Sometimes it takes 2 presses. One time it took 9 presses. Then it was up to 17 and back to 4. You never know when you're going to get a pellet. Okay, that rat will get pellets long past the point of being full. They will stockpile pellets just because it's a game to get them. There it is. There it is. There it is that reinforces getting all of these pellets. This is slot machines. People will stand at slot machines all day because there's intermittent time. You never know when you're going to get a payout. And there's intermittent amount. Sometimes you win 5 and sometimes you win 50. And so those things really entrench that behavior. Let's say there's no more pellets. Pellets are done. Lab rat A, who got a pellet every time, they're going to push it a few times. But man, this thing is broken. This always works. They're going to come back when they're starving and try again. Nope, it's broken, doesn't work. Lab rat B, they're going to push that thing till they keel over out of exhaustion and get back up and push it some more because it's got to be the next time. It's got to be the next time. I remember one time it took 17. Maybe it's 17 in a row. And they'll come back and come back. Their brain is trying to make sense of the pattern when there really wasn't any sense to the pattern. But that every once in a while this thing works tends to more strongly reinforce the behavior than it worked all the time and now it's broken. So take what you just learned back to tantruming child. Child A gets consistent reinforcement. Going down the candy aisle, start to tantrum, get a candy bar. Going down the candy aisle, start to tantrum, get a candy bar. Start to tantrum, get a candy bar. One day going down the candy aisle, start to tantrum, you say, not today. They may tantrum a little while, but you're broken. This thing always worked, and now it doesn't work at all. Versus child B. Every once in a while this thing works. Going down the candy aisle, they start to tantrum, you ignore them, you leave the store. Going down the candy aisle, they start to tantrum, say not today. 5 minutes later, you give in, whatever, it's just a candy bar. Going down the candy aisle, they start to tantrum, say not today. They're gonna tantrum way longer, way harder than child A, because sometimes this thing works. I remember one day it took me 5 minutes, I'm gonna go 10. And the idea is that if every once in a while something works, it entrenches that behavior. Now again, I know it's not as straightforward. It's not anywhere near as straightforward with children than it is with a lab rat at all. But that intermittency is a piece. And so what that means to me as a parent is when the tantrum starts, you want a really consistent response. You want to have a plan for that and move through that plan as best you can. I hope this is helpful. By all means, if you have questions, you're welcome to join me on Facebook or through our website. I hope to be back. I hope to post here on YouTube Mondays and Thursdays moving forward. You are also welcome to comment below if you have other topics, parenting topics, that you'd like to hear about. Thank you so much.